Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Senor Nerd Podcast. I have here with me, as always, Raul,
Howdy, howdy.
Ramon,
Hey guys.
and today, by popular demand, we brought one of our special guests back. Tony, say hello to everyone.
What up, people?
Tony, today we're going to talk about Dune 2021. And one of the reasons that we brought you back, believe it or not, is because you're our Dune expert. You're going to tell us everything that we say that's wrong. You're going to correct us on things. And you're going to tell us why you're excited for part two. So I hope you brought it, man. I hope you brought it because this is the one that counts.
This is my movie right here. Yeah.
You made it.
uh, but before we start, Tony, I do want to ask you something, and this is very important. As I was watching part one, there's a love interest that I got very passionate about, and honest to God, I don't know if part two is going to explore this love interest. I don't know if maybe it's explored in different sequels, but this is something that I must know, Tony, and I don't care if you spoil it for me right now. Does Paul and his mom get together at all in any of these, like part two or in the next book? Can you tell me that? Can you spoil it for me?
What?
Well, it's not an Oedipus Rex situation, which is good. So, quick spoiler: they're just really close, but it never really jumps that extra step, which is good. It's not a Romanesque film.
Oh my god! And believe it or not, I'm serious about that question. But let's get that out of the way. Ro, tell us what you thought about Dune 2021 as you were rewatching it.
um, I don't know why I even consider like not thinking about how gorgeous it is because that's what the director's known for is how gorgeous all his movies look. But yeah, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, and the story is cool. And everybody parodies the Dune story. Pretty much, Star Wars is Dune, but also in space.
Ramon, what did you think about this 2021 rewatch movie you did?
Well, Raul read my mind. It's not Star Wars, but it's that Star Wars inspired like t-shirt that I'm wearing, but it's actually
Mm.
Zelda. So, anyways, yeah, absolutely. Dune is kind of like the less popular version of Star Wars. I think Star Wars did it right with like having things simplified. This movie has a lot of hard words, but no, no. To be honest, I was kind of very familiar with the story. Never read the book. I watched the old movie, and I think I watched the miniseries that came out. I mean, I don't even know, like 2000. And so watching this 2021 movie was definitely like that, polished version of the story. It was really beautiful. I just rewatched it very recently with these like, nice little headphones. I think just the sounds, the way that everything looks, and of course the story played out the way that it got played out in this one part. I think it was just the way that it should have been like this whole time, because the other movies, the other series just don't do it justice. I think this was just a beautiful journey that we all kind of took. Left us hanging a little bit with part two coming, but that's in the near future for us. So
I I I,
Tony,
I
no, go ahead.
I kind of hope so since it came out during the pandemic, I kind of hope that they do like a re-release before part two comes out. That way I can actually watch it in theaters because I'm guessing that's gonna be fucking amazing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do like where you can watch part one and then it transitions into part two
Oh,
the
that's
same
smart.
day. But that would be awesome.
I
Yeah.
think Paul's mother is probably still one of my favorite characters. Not
Yeah.
just characters, but actress in this movie, because she's such a significant role that's basically there to guide Paul throughout this, like at least this first part is so significant. And it's funny that you started with that whole like will they not between Paul and the mother, because in general, like yes, there is that relationship that they play off of, and it's not necessarily like super like mama's boy type of thing, but she clearly has a huge role in the story, in the book, in the movie. Even the Duke asks her the question, if it really comes down to it, are you going to save Paul? Like not as like just the mother, like as a Bene Gesserit, like are you going to make the decision to like put that aside and defend him overall? And so it's like I think she's one of the ones right now that has one of the harder roles, because she's trying to be a guardian, and then you at the end of this movie you basically see where Paul really has already made up his mind. He stepped up just like the Duke, just like his dad wanted him to, right? Like he was even questioning in the beginning in that beautiful scene where, Oscar Isaac, they're in the graveyard basically, and he's reflecting on his dad's death. And, you could tell that freaking Paul doesn't really want to take on that responsibility of being like the next in line to be the Duke. But by the end of this movie, like not necessarily that he wants to be that, but he knows he has to be a leader. He has to step up. He has to be there for the Freeman, and the mother has no choice but to follow. So she kind of goes from like being a protector to being like kind of a follower. And I don't know. I really love that relationship. All jokes aside, I think is one of the better ones in the movie because everybody else dies unfortunately, or like even freaking Duncan Idaho, who's like his idol and he loves. At this point we think he's dead. So clearly, he's almost left with almost like no one besides premonitions and his mother, and then the Freeman, who he doesn't really know yet.
Yeah.
Um, Tony, I need you to, for our fans that might have seen the movie or might have already forgotten certain details, I need you to summarize the whole movie in the next 3 minutes. Go.
All right. Basically, Middle Eastern Star Wars. The kid comes from the best planet in the world, gets thrown in the desert, only they don't ever leave Tatooine, right? They're stuck there. And it's Game of Thrones esque where everybody's conspiring and trying to figure out how they're going to take over this political sphere, which is the Duneverse. And what it comes down to it is the Atreides family, which is the good guys, in the film, get backstabbed by just about everybody, and they get stranded in the desert by everyone, and they team up with what could be the Taliban before they went bad, and they they actually call it in the books a jihad. They basically jihad their way back into power and win over the spice world. And for those who haven't read the books, they win, right? They're going to win. It's a good movie, but throughout this whole conflict, there's conspiring, backstabbing, political back moves, and it's overall a big chess game with a lot of whispering. If you ever read the books, there's a lot of like mental conversations that each character has. You just don't get to see it in the movies. But overall, awesome movie, one of my favorites.
No, no, and this is kind of where I get the short end of the stick, where it's just like, what can I say about this movie that you guys haven't really said? Especially just kind of like how beautiful it is. The music is great. The world building is freaking amazing. Even though this is probably like my fourth time watching this movie, like it still felt fresh for me. It felt like something like I hadn't seen before in this movie, and it's just like I wish I knew all the facts like you do, Tony. And that's probably the part that makes me really excited because I think part two is going to tell me a lot more things that currently right now I am missing that information, and I just can't wait for my knowledge of Dune to continue to grow, just based on what I'm seeing and the things that I've read.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the movie, like obviously focusing on this movie particularly, like I love the way it starts just because again, being able to meet the Duke and then played by someone so amazing like Oscar Isaac.
He's
He even has like that
perfect.
freaking he has that awesome beard speckled with a little bit of gray, and then obviously Josh Brolin as his second in command, is that power duo. And obviously as you kind of continue to watch the movie, you kind of knows what happens to the Duke, and ultimately it just ends in tragedy. But at least kind of sets it up in that way, right? Like we see these like giant halls, these big like buildings and stuff like that, and you have these little tiny little people, but with such great power. So it just really goes to show you what that house Atreides is really all about. That it's just they're set in power, and you already kind of start finding out from the beginning that they are a family that kind of has gotten his recognition by just being like kind of leader of the people. And I know like obviously once you watch the movie, you kind of see a little bit more of that being what plays into the kind of treason, or not the treason, but the betrayal that happens because the emperor ultimately feels threatened by House Atreides, and causes the whole little plot that we encounter later, which is sending them to Dune, and then ultimately like getting them killed over there.
No, no, definitely. No, I agree with that. I mean, I wasn't kind of, like I said, I said in my intro, I wasn't really kidding about like the whole how close Paul and his mom are in this movie. And it kind of brings it back to what you said, Tony. Like this reminds me sort of like I'm watching the fall of the Roman Empire. And it feels very like that, like this is the one house that's very powerful. And then the emperor's like planning against it because he's sort of scared, afraid of, maybe people are going to start following this house and possibly rebel against him. And at least that's my assumption of what's happening in his mind. So it's just like it's so enjoyable, man. And it's like the his mom, Lady Jessica, she's so great throughout this movie. I constantly feel like she's just afraid, and I feel like Paul has to watch over her. I feel like even though she's very powerful, and just the idea of her using the voice against you, like that sort of brings me fear. It's just a woman that, from what I can tell in this movie, she always seems like she's scared, or she's afraid, or she's trembling. Never really feels like somebody that can just enjoy living day to day. But then again, she's one of those people that you don't need to worry about her because she can defend herself. We see her defend herself against one of the Fremen. We see herself defend against some of these like soldiers by using the voice. So it's like you. This is like the wrong woman if you choose to mess with her.
Yeah, and then Tony, you can probably clarify on this. So she's not actually married to the Duke, right? She just had
No.
his son, and she like what's the relationship there? And she was never supposed to be with him, or what was the dealio?
Have
No,
a
so
son.
yeah, so they're Bene Gesserit, right? Like all the
Yeah.
females that you see in positions of power are Bene Gesserits, and they're all concubines. They're never really wives. Now they're the ones that have like this big prophetical role in the movie, where their whole even in the books, their whole purpose is to provide to basically breed this Messiah, but they're doing it in steps that take hundreds of years. Like they've been selectively breeding the leadership basically to come up with the right individual to be the Kwisatz Haderach is what they call it, right? The chosen Messiah that like can transcend future and past, like this super prophet, if you will. Now the issue that you see in the movie is the reason that there was that conflict in the beginning is the Bene Gesserit are well trained, so they have full control of their body, like every cell in their body, to the point where, yeah, they're great fighters because they can contract their muscles to be just that fast. They have the voice where they can command you and you'll do it without knowing what you just did. That's how much control they have. So much control so that when they get pregnant, they can selectively decide to have either a male or female. And all the Bene Gesserit have been told only have
Oh.
females because their job is to just have females to marry them off to other positions of power. And she
Mm.
defied the whole order by attempting to have a male because she loved the Duke. The Duke loved her. So she decided to give him a son, which is a big no no because the Bene Gesserit are saving that birth for their profited Messiah, if you will. So by her going ahead and having a boy, it's a wrench in their plans because they weren't expecting a boy at all in their you know
The mix.
centuries long plan.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's almost like if somebody had planted the idea of Jesus will get resurrected hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and it's like, all right, we're just waiting. I'm not the Pope, but if I was the Pope, it's like, all right, we're just waiting for the right moment to say and tell everybody like Jesus is back. Is that sort of the idea behind this?
Yeah, basically think about it. They're trying to breed the next big Jesus, right? And they're trying to put all the pieces into the right spot before they do that. But she just goes ahead and has a kid who's also a guy, which, as you can
And
tell,
and
he
and
inherits a
and
lot of that stuff.
and then she names him Jesus.
Oh, so that's
Jesus Atreides, yes.
so that's what the J stands for, and Paul, after Paul, I got it, I got it.
Yeah, but it basically becomes that. So like
Yeah.
by her having a son, all the Bene Gesserit are not necessarily freaked out, but they're kind of like, "What the hell, guy? Like we weren't planning for a male. Now because you had a male, is he going to be the next one? Is he not? Like it throws a wrench, and you can see it with the conflict that now the Bene Gesserit are along the same lines of, well, we can't really kill them because they're part of our order. That's her son. We can't really harm that. They can't really harm each other. Hence the little the backstabbing deals that you see where it's like, hey, you can't kill the mother because she's under our protection kind of deal, and the son by default. Um, and that's what the the big gray conflict is where there's a boy, they didn't want a boy. What do they do next? They weren't planning on this happening at all. Because one thing you'll see in the books, if you guys ever get a chance to read the books, it's awesome. In the books, they have something called the Orange Catholic Bible, and it's like a modified version of the Catholic Bible, and they plant this religion across the universe, and it talks about the Kwisatz Haderach in there, and how like the voice from the sky will come, and the Fremen also read this, and they've been reading this for hundreds of years, so they truly believe that that kid is the Messiah because they read it in their books for hundreds of years, and the Messiah was supposed to be born of a Bene Gesserit. So that's what the conflict is. This kid came out of nowhere, and now everybody's thinking that he is now the prophetic Messiah that's supposed to be coming from the sky.
No, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but the moment some guy comes in and turns water into wine, and starts walking also on water or doing something like that, like I'm gonna all of a sudden like take the dust off my Bible and start praying to the old Jesus. But yeah,
uh, uh,
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I mean,
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I mean, I was gonna say, but yeah, like that's at least in this movie is definitely really apparent from the beginning, right? Because they talk about it later how Paul is not only solely walking the path of like royalty essentially because he is the duke's son, but obviously not, he doesn't even know his full like prophecy and kind of everything having to do with the Bene Gesserits. So it's kind of nice to see that in the movie right away because obviously as the Reverend Mother shows up, scariest woman
Oh
alive, and I
no.
think even in the old, I think even the 1984 movie, I think it's a little scary because they don't even have hair, man. They're like bald like me, so they're rocking the same haircut and everything like that. But she appears there and she kind of puts them to that test, and it's really cool to see that scene because if you really don't know what's gonna happen, like she obviously instructs the mother to stay outside, right? And the mother's like kind of
Freaking out, yeah.
afraid, yeah,
yeah.
freaking out about what's about to happen to Paul, and just kind of gives him like a nice little pep talk, sends him in there, and then the whole time she starts, rephrasing that like one saying that she talks about fear, not having fear.
Ramon, what's in the box? What's in the box? Tell me.
It is pain and agony. I don't know if I obviously Tony might know the actual thing, but yeah, no, pain and agony, and it's just like the whole thing of just being able to kind of live through that or be able to feel through that. That was great, but I love that whole premise of like
Yeah.
if you remove your hand, you'll instantly die, and she wasn't freaking kidding around. So it's a
yeah.
really good scene to watch play out. And Timothy Chalamet, we haven't even mentioned him yet, but like
Yeah.
I was actually kind of like a little concerned. I mean, it still beats Paul from 1984 movie because again, that movie is just so like visually there in my mind. But yeah, Timothée Chalamet they're really good, and I think that was one of the first scenes that you started really kind of like believing in him because he does a really good job like
Yeah.
acting and suffering that pain, and he powers through, gives her that death stare, and then he just kind of
No,
dismissed.
dude. No, dude. He's a cool guy. Like honestly, in this movie, I think he does a great job at carrying it. You do believe in him. You do kind of want to root for him. It's a little bit hard for me just to take him seriously when he's fighting people that he could be so strong. But if I'm led to believe that this kid has been trained since the moment he's been born to like be royalty, to defend himself, to be defending against any assassinations, like I that alone lets me to believe like yeah, even though he might not look like a fighter, like surely enough, just from that beginning intro when he's fighting Josh Brolin's character, like you can tell that this kid can definitely bring it. So I do root for part two for him and Zendaya to get together because I feel like that is going to be the actual true romance because he's been dreaming about this girl for so many, like, I don't know, months, years, but he's just always had this vision of with her. So it's going to be really interesting in part two to see that chemistry finally play off. So I'm really excited about that. And I do think Tom Holland should be a little bit nervous because, man, that boy is a little bit too beautiful, if you ask me.
No, it
It's funny you mentioned that romance because again, it's such a Dune is such a political movie, and in the books you get to see how politically um, driven it is because stuff is going to happen in part if they follow the book, and so far they've done a fantastic job. Stuff's going to happen between them in part two if it does follow the books again. That it's going to be like, what the hell? Why are you going to do this? And it's all political play, and it's what should happen, but that romance is going to be something that you guys may or may not see coming.
oh boy.
It's great. I know that
Mm.
I'm not going to mention anything,
So,
but it's something to look forward to.
so what you're saying is we have a hot Twilight situation between Zendaya and the mom here. I gotcha. I got. I'm following. I'm following you, Tony.
No,
Oh,
and
it's so good.
yeah, and because of Tony, actually, like I tried to read the book before the movie came out, but
Yeah.
I didn't have enough time before it actually came out.
Yeah,
Uh,
and,
but
and
but
the mom, because the mom is pregnant too by the end of the movie, right? She's expecting her second child.
Yes,
Yeah,
oh, I forgot
and
about
because
that
something
part.
fantastical happens to that kid.
because I don't remember. Is that
Oh.
something I read or you told me, or they actually dropped hints in the movie of that second child? I feel like there are hints, right?
He said
So
it. Paul said it.
yeah,
Okay.
in the end of that
Yeah.
movie, they mentioned that she's pregnant, and they have the vision with her with the baby, and like the blade sitting in front of them. But if you remember the 2000s miniseries or the 1984 film of Dune, the kid's there. There is a daughter flying around doing some weird witch
Oh, it's a
stuff, which is
girl.
amazing. Yeah, it's mentioned in the movie. It's like, oh, you're
I don't
pregnant
remember.
with the yeah. It's going to be interesting because again,
Mm.
that kid has a role to play because in part two, a couple of years should have passed. Like it's Paul's been in exile for a while, and some really cool things are going to happen. Not to go into spoiler territory, but some really cool things are going to happen to Paul, to the daughter, and I don't know if they mentioned it in this one or the next book, but also the Harkonnens have a revelation, if you will, and it's awesome.
Interesting. Yeah.
No,
So
yeah.
so with Timothy Charlemagne, one I do think that he's actually like really good for the role because from the several chapters that I did read, like I could see him being kind of like that role, and I love the fact that he looks so young, or he looks a lot younger than what he really is, so he kind of shows that part, and he does kind of seem like someone that was brought up as a son of a duke, but he also keeps having those dreams that you don't notice, or you're not sure if they're like premonitions, or he's seeing the future or possible future, or like or kind of what's going on. And then the to me the most, I guess, important, the most impactful one was skipping ahead a little bit, was when he was gonna fight the that dude, the Fremen.
Mm, yeah.
And then he kind of like saw that he
He,
like was teaching him, or that they were friends at some point in the future, but then obviously like that didn't happen. So
because I thought what you were gonna say is that he's having dreams as he's touching the rock that he's
yeah,
gonna get killed by this guy. So
yeah.
that's what I thought you were gonna say.
Well, yeah. During that moment, he also had the kind of like the vision of like him and the other guy kind of teaching him how to do stuff, and then he also had the vision of him killing him, and then I think that's the way that he was able to avoid actually being stabbed um, by him, because he kind of already saw it, so that he was able to avoid it, and then that was a move that he did to kill the other guy that was supposed to kill him.
It's funny because like Tony, isn't that correct? But like the whole thing with his premonitions is basically it's like a premonition of his like ultimate power. Like later on, like he basically consumes so much spice, or he lives around spice so much that he unlocks more of his potential. And a lot of it is kind of having to be able to travel between future and past. And
Super
so
Saiyan.
it's weird. It's weird because those premonitions, it is right, Raul. Like it's a little confusing in the movie, but
Mhm.
that's what it's supposed to be, right? It's like he's experiencing at the present moment a premonition, but when it plays out, it's different because he already kind of lived a little bit of that moment. And so it's weird because that guy, they did kind of in the premonition, they were kind of befriended each other. He taught him a lesson that later in the actual present he was able to put into play, but it played differently because again it didn't happen those ways. But I love that scene in general in particular too,
Mhm.
because they're talking about in order for him to be reborn he has to die.
Yeah.
And then they kind of sneak it in that killing someone else is also a death.
Yeah.
And so it was that's I think just again just being lost in the
Beautiful. Yeah.
music, being lost in the
Hmm.
music and the visuals of everything. But those scenes are just like so great. Like and you have them surrounded by all the Freemen, and everybody's spectating them, and you already kind of know what's going to happen. And at the same time, when it plays out, it's even more beautiful just because of the compassion. But yeah, man, that guy and his visions.
Hmm.
So it's funny because spice, that's the big thing. The spice is the driving force behind this because everybody wants the spice in Dune. So it has two main effects with a third like unwanted effect. It's supposed to unlock your mind. So the navigators, the guys that you see basically moving the big like spherical cylindrical ships, those are
Hmm.
navigators. That with enough spice, they'll eventually become able to command the ship, like find the fastest route, kind of bend space. Hyperspace travel exists because of spice. That's the first thing it does. The second thing it does, it extends your life. So again, the Fremen are just having spice in the air. They don't really like inject it into the veins, but navigators get like pure spice. Those guys live almost forever.
Oh, cool.
The third unwanted effect, though, the third effect, which is unwanted, it causes like mutations in navigators. Those are the guys who are like high on this stuff all the time. But the unlocking the mind, since he is a son of the Bene Gesserit, if you will, he has that extra power to kind of see things. So yeah, the premonitions is one of the things. But it's good that you called it out, because again, his premonitions aren't 100%, right. For a Messiah, he's doing a terrible job of like, oh, this is going to come next. But it plays well into the story, because there is a link between him and um, his premonitions, and why they're the way they are, as opposed to being 100% accurate. That it ties in well, and it's explored heavily, I believe. Well, in the books, it's explored as to why that was the case, and it's gorgeous. I just hope they explore that a little bit more.
And we have not seen any navigators, right? Like they're possibly holding back for the second one to kind of show us what they could look like when they live too long.
Yeah. So if you guys remember the old Dune, the
I
navigators.
saw how they look. Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they're kept in vats basically at that point, because they live off spice. Period. But I don't know if that would take away from the mystique behind them, because all you know is that they're navigators. They never really leave the ship. They have a huge amount of power, because they're the only ones. The Navigator Guild is the only
Damn,
house
man.
that can travel space. The only one.
Because
So
you almost had me believing that the ladies with the voices that they were almost running the whole thing, but now you had me believing that possibly the navigators. And it's like, is that the intrigue thing behind doing this? Like, you feel like all these different hands potentially could be ruling. Like, you're telling me why Paul could be ruling, why the Emperor's ruling, why the navigators could be ruling. And it's just like, man, like, who do I go for? Who do I put my money on,
yeah.
Tony? Who do I
So
go like put 100
here's the
on?
coolest part about that. This is why I love Dune so much, and this is the coolest part about it, because again, the books explore the houses a little bit more, right? You have the navigators who control space travel. Period. Like you want to go from Earth to Dune, you need a navigator. You want to go from literally anywhere from one pocket of space to another, you need the navigating guild. Period. No ifs and or buts. They're the only ones that can do it. But you need spice. Who controls spice? The Emperor's house controls spice. Carillo's house, the House Carillo. So you want the spice, you need House Carillo. Yet you want the political power to be able to make these negotiations, you need the Bene
Ooh.
Gesserit. They haven't even explored the Tleilax, which is a whole different house. They're the only ones that use technology, like forbidden technology, because they're like on they're an outlier house, which has super powerful technology. So every house has like this major pull to them, right? That they can all realistically rule the universe. And that's what it comes down to, is like, who do you want to put your money on? Who do you want your hero to be? Because realistically, you have the Harkonnens, which are the richest house, very brutal. You have the Atreides, which are like the noble, get it done because we can do it right. And then you got the other houses, which have their own niche, if you will. It's like Advanced Wars, where you're playing with the best CEO from each nation and you're trying to bash it out.
It's almost like if spice was in reality, again, to apply something to like here, we already kind of did the whole Jesus thing. It's almost like spice is oil, and whoever controls the oil can run the planet.
It is. Spice is oil. Spice is oil. America would be all over that.
Oh my god, this is fucking. It's so funny, man. Like, why can't we come up with shit like this? What the fuck is wrong with us? Where did the school system fail us? Like, why don't we not have crazy imagination like this? Maybe you, Ramon, you have some crazy numbers in your head, but me and Ro and Tony were definitely dead inside.
I mean, I've seen Tony's stuff. Tony's right there with me. No, I mean, I think that the cool thing about this too is like, as like this book came out, and like even like that 1984 movie came out, like you could just imagine, especially back then, right? You're trying to create a movie with like without CGI, without like these crazy special effects, and you had like blue screen. Was it blue screens back then?
Blue
Yeah, like
screen.
you had blue screens. You had like these like giant brain puppets, and like all these crazy things that they were doing as far as special effects, but like I think that's just what goes to say about it, that there was people back there along with George Lucas too, like doing his Star Wars around the same time, a little bit before, but it's this idea of just kind of having this like crazy idea, and now we see it played differently, but everybody's borrowing from the same ideas. Like, Game of Thrones is very similar story, right? Like it's something like we were talking about all the houses and why they're
No,
also
no,
beneficial
no,
and all these
definitely.
things, and it's crazy. Like,
The dragons are the spice in Game of Thrones. I definitely see that connection too.
no, but I mean, and it's great. And I think again, this movie goes to show you that's why it's even better, because I think I feel like with better technology and better visuals and better just ability to kind of make these beautiful films, I think it tones it back and it makes it more gritty, and it seems like it's kind of ancient, but way in the future. I don't know, man. I just like I'm always mesmerized by this movie, and again, just rewatching it again too. Like I think again, I did see it like a few times the first time, and then watching it again, like you said, Carlos, it feels like so new. Like every single time you watch it, and it's something about that. It's just like you get sucked into the world. You want to be part of it. You don't want to die to the what are they called, the Sarkars, Tony?
Yeah.
Sardaukar.
The server cars, yeah. Like I mean, like that's what I'm saying. Like you want to be there, you want to be able to like kind of join the fight, you want to be able to take sides, but at the same time, like spectating is just like it's awesome. But yeah,
No, dude, I'm gonna need us to talk about real quick about the Baron,
Duncan.
and it's
Oh,
no, the Baron, no, yeah, that guy's
uh,
cool too, but the Baron,
Harkonnen.
man, right now, yeah, like right now, I'm in this high with the Skarsgårds, man. Like I feel like I watched the Northman, and that
Northman,
has
yeah.
the son Skarsgård, the I think the oldest, and then we saw John Wick 4, and that also has Skarsgård, the clown that plays it.
Yeah.
Now I'm watching Dune, it has the father Skarsgård, and like, dude, and especially after seeing him in
And the Thor
and,
movies.
no, Andor. Get out of here, Andor. After seeing Skarsgård
Oh
in
yeah,
Andor, it's just
Andor.
like this family, dude, has the potential to be one of the best like blood relatives that are like acting today. And if I was
What
like
about
a
the
celebrity,
Sheevs?
I would watch my back, dude, because these guys are fucking awesome. Like Scars, I forget the one, the Northman. That guy's like 6'4". The guy that plays Ed,
Gorgeous.
he's also like 6'4". It's just like, dude, these guys are giants. They're beautiful. They can act their asses off. And like, dude, can you tell me more about the Baron? Because to me, he's the one that I just find so scary. And like, I don't know if he has like. Does he have robotics that can make himself a little bit more stronger than like a normal human? Is that how he's able to like rip off a head without like kind of like struggling?
So the Baron, right? So Haas Harkonnen, it's great because he plays such a good Baron. Like, in the old films, you saw the Baron, they made him look ugly, just pus filled. And in the books, he's also not pretty looking, I would say, or human-esque. Here it's more like an obese man with like these just overly obese. Now the cybernetics you see on him, the little thing on his back, it's not to make him stronger. He's actually in the books so fat that he has a hard time moving around. So those things, if you see him float, is because of that. But it gives you such a prominent, like almost omniscient feel when he pulls up, and it's like
Hmm.
that's death floating your way because he's big.
Yeah.
Now he's I would say, yeah, with that much mass you're strong, but like his strength comes from money. It's he controls the richest house. He is a brutal man, as you saw his little spider pet thing
You
that
know, which
used
a
to
lot of people are.
exist.
Yeah, a lot of people say that that's the doctor's wife. Do you know if that's true or not?
It's all speculation, but I would not
Speculation.
doubt
Is it
it
a
because again,
chimera?
they are brutal. They are brutal people, and that's how he raised his sons, his nephews, and stuff like that. They were all very brutal people, and
Edward.
that's how yeah, Edward. That's how they got into the positions they were in. They're richer than the emperor. They're willing to do all the dirty stuff because of that, and they're rich. They don't care about like running the empire. They just want to get more money, more power. They can care less about the empire, if you will. But that the Duke itself is a great staple as to like what gluttonous power looks like. Because as you saw, he was yeah, I'm not gonna kill the sun or the Bene Gesserit, but nothing survives in the desert. And he left it. I mean, that's what he did. It was amazing.
Dude, so yeah, like so he's amazing there, and then we kind of get a glimpse of Dave Bautista too. Is he more prominent in the like the second part,
So
or is it just a small role?
Bautista's character is actually he's like the butcher in the books, and so he has a bigger role in the books because as you know that there's two like sons or nephews, if you will, right? You saw Bautista's character um, being the butcher. He's all bronze. I'm sorry, he's all muscle. Not nothing really complex going in his head. But he's eager to please. And in the second book, yes, the second half, you'll see him like mount the defenses and just go out into like a fighting frenzy for his uncle. But the I want to say that the other son or his brother is basically the guy who Sting played. Yeah, yeah, he's not as strong, but he's hella smart. So you have like the muscle that is Bautista and his brother, which is the intelligence behind it, and they're both trying to please the uncle, the Baron, the Harkonnen god, if you will, and that's what makes Bautista's character so awesome. It's just a big hammer
Yeah.
that the guy chooses to swing at. It's
So,
it's
yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah. I mean, pretty much you're saying this guy's like rootless. He will fucking kill, destroy, battle. And it's kind of like, I'm a little sad that I didn't get to see him fight Duncan Idaho, Jason Momoa's character. That makes me a little bit like upset and, kind of wish that he wasn't dead. But I think, Tony, you drop hints that maybe he'll come back. Maybe Jason Momoa's role is not done yet in this movie. Because, I only saw him get stabbed 10 times, and everybody knows that a guy cannot die unless he gets stabbed 15 times. So, 10 still possible for him to come back, right?
According to Aquaman lore, yes, like, but we are in Dune, right? And if we're exploring book one, I mean, it's Duncan, Idaho. It's a family name for a reason, but I don't know how much you're going to give away in book two. But I mean, yeah, he straight up died in that corridor. No lie.
Hey,
It's
so
funny how we actually go ahead, bro.
oh no, 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 because like with those shields, that's the thing that throws me off a little bit sometimes too. Because like those shields are supposed to like stop objects that come
Oh, yeah.
like projectiles that come at you quickly, but then
Mhm.
like somehow like when they're fighting, like some stuff like sometimes they're able to stab each other a little bit. So they just confuse me a little bit with
Is
how
it
they
like a
work
dance?
exactly.
Is it like a dance where you have to like know how to strike and then gently navigate the blade once you have them like close range? Like, because I'm also a little bit like curious about how that works. Because when I see the movie, it's like,
Yeah,
okay, what is Duncan Idaho doing differently? That he's just he's able to like like bypass the shields like without like even the red like turning on. Like he'll just
yeah.
like get the knife on their neck and slash them instantly. So it's like kind of interesting that he has like a special technique to do this, but everybody else seems to like struggle a little.
Or is it
Okay,
just a
so
super sharp knife?
Duncan, Idaho is like the grand master of sword fighting. Like in the Dune universe, that is like the pinnacle sword fighter, period. And you can see that in the corridor fight.
So so
So the
so
shields
so
are
so he's
awesome.
Mihawk from One Piece.
Yeah, he is the sword fighter extraordinary. Like you can't beat Duncan, Idaho, unless of course you throw like bodies and bodies and bodies, John Wick style. So the shields, right? So they're really interesting because they deflect anything going above a certain speed. Like that's why bullets don't work. If you shoot somebody with a projectile or something, it doesn't. It just bounces off.
It
So when
works,
you
man. I don't know if you're watching the same movie as me, but like Oscar Isaac, he gets shot in the back, and that thing
Oh,
eventually
oh yeah,
pierces
yeah,
through
oh
the
yeah, yeah,
shield.
yeah,
That's,
because
but
it's
it
like
goes slower.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
notice, like so when you saw the smart bombs come down from the sky, they were like spinning, 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 and they slowed down before they hit the ships, and they slowed down. They went
And then they
and then
pulsate.
they slowed
Yeah.
before they detonated. So they have to, according to what I'm seeing anyway, and what I've gathered from the books, they decelerate to penetrate. So that little hunter killer that was going really, really fast, it had to slow down to be able to stab the guy. The swords, my understanding is, I guess Duncan can get to the shield, kind of slip it in really slow, and then go fast out. So that's how you
Mm,
bypass the shield. Remember the fight scene where they were training,
yeah.
yeah.
and the guy said the slow blade penetrates the shield. You have to be going at just the right speed to be able to pass that. Too fast, it'll bounce off. Too slow, the enemy gets you.
Will we ever see anybody shoot somebody that's wearing a shield? Because I think you brought it to my attention that that was ever to happen, it would create like an atomic bomb sort of destruction. So will we
Yeah.
ever see that?
So No, not in this not in Dune, not in this book anyway. In
Okay.
the first book that doesn't happen, but yes, the shields were so effective that it basically got rid of laser weaponry, right? Like why? Because if you shoot somebody, it bounces back, but it reverberates, so it's like a ever a laser goes the speed of light, it bounces back the speed of light, and it just starts colliding itself, and it causes basically a nuclear style explosion. Everyone dies. Like it is a no joke. Why are we doing this? So no guns. There are no guns in Dune for that reason.
Oh man, that's cool, man. I hope it kind of like maybe not the next movie, but eventually we do get a little bit more history behind like some of the technology. But again, I don't want to be the guy that gets everything explained to. But that sounds cool, man. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and then
Uh,
the and like all this is just an example of like how thorough like everything is so well thought out with like all the different houses and kind of like all the histories between all the different houses and then the whole political part and then like the religious part and then just like everything with just Paul by himself and then the shields and the technology and then spice and then the Fremen and the planet and everything is just so well thought out that makes this world that's so like complex and so interesting and so like full of like everything. And then also obviously like everything's kind of symbols of everything else. We're like the Fremen are kind of like the indigenous people that have kind of been like colonized and all that stuff. And then you have like colonizers kind of fighting over like all the resources and all that stuff. So I don't know. It's just awesome, complex story and
I
world
mean, but
that they made.
what's cool to see is that the Fremen themselves actually have their own technology. I
Hmm.
love the idea of just like being able to recycle their like basically any kind of bodily fluids, basically able to create like drinking water again. Because it plays really well. I think this movie did it really good. So it played it really well. I think there was a couple scenes that I really enjoyed watching that. As far as like when they're in the tent, like the mother and Paul, after they kind of go through that crazy sandstorm. And even the tent has that like technology as well. I don't know. That was one of those things that I seen too. And then for themselves, like even Duncan says it after living with them for a little while too, that they're kind of like great fighters and everything else. So yes, even though they may play that similar role to like again people being colonized and in general they have almost no choice because maybe they don't have like a grander sense or technology as far as like crazy airships and stuff like that, but just like the capabilities they have. And then best coolest thing they do have is being able to ride the sandworms. Like that's
oh
what I'd be
yeah.
jealous, right? Yeah.
Well, it's kind of crazy that the Baron thinks there's only like 50,000 of them, but in reality, there's just so many of them. So like, obviously, numbers are going to be playing a big part on the second movie. I'm assuming, Tony, because I mean, like what? Like I mean, I think even Paul says that like the strength relies with the people. And can we just call the Freeman man? Because it's just like it's so annoying the fact that he just couldn't add that extra e to it. But yeah.
It's the future, man. That letter doesn't exist anymore. It's pronounced fre. You can't double e it anymore. No, I love the Fremen. I think that's one of the cool things about Dune, right? Like you have Star Wars where it's like you got all these races and each race is kind of like in the background, right? Like no real race matters in Star Wars. You either human or you're Yoda, and that's it, right? Like everything else is expandable, right? Like you can
Jar Jar Binks.
no, that Sith Lord belongs nowhere near anything. But that's the thing, right? Like
Wookiees.
that's okay. I mean, you can't talk, but it comes down to that, right? Like you have all these races, and they're there for like background elements, right? They add
Yeah,
to there's a world,
yeah.
but in Dune, it's all humans and how they survived in each region of space, and then you have the Fremen, which are like literal nomads. They're like the only nomads that have seemed to thrive well. And they explain that technology is like, well, how do you live in the desert? It's explained. They have coves. Where do you get your water? We are the water, right? We recycle ourselves, kind of deal. It's like, so what do you guys do for fun? We ride fucking sandboards, man. There's nothing else to do here. Like,
Dude,
and
I
that's
love. Yeah,
go
because
ahead.
I love the fact how they're able to like hide themselves underneath the sand and then just surprise like people with like smoke of like sand all around, and then they get the upper hand. And I gotta say that the reason they're able to do that is because they have that one thing where they can vibrate sand. Is that how they dig themselves so quick under the sand?
The thumper
the
that
rep-
thing.
No,
no
not the
the
thumper.
No, no, not the
repulsor.
thumper, like the repulsor.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how they were
because
getting out of the tent?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
is
yeah.
that how they do it? They just kind of like vibrate themselves into the sand and then just jump out.
Yeah, I would make that assumption. I don't think it's really explored in the books, but yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't. I mean, I can't imagine them, drinking that coffee. Was it coffee or just like
that's
just
something.
just
Yeah.
taking a shot of water, right? But then you see the Sardaukar up top, and like I don't think it works that way. So I would assume, yeah, it would be with the repulsor. Only thing that would make sense. But you
No,
wouldn't need it if you're a Fremen.
another piece of technology that I was really impressed to like see in this movie as well too, especially when they are after the sandstorm and they're buried underneath her, like Paul and his mother, and then he's like, "All right, time to get out." Gets the repulsor, and then all of a sudden you see him like coming out of the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude, how come when Paul was sorry, Ro, I'm gonna beat you to this one. When Paul was getting assassinated, how come the thing stopped like right in his eye? Like, can you somebody explain to me like what was the thought behind that? Like, why did the drone like all of a sudden just like stop right here and then didn't go all the way into his eyeball?
Okay, so that's a hunter killer, and I'm trying to recall a little bit on the books, but it goes off um like normal movement slash like fear almost, right? Like it runs off fear, I believe. So when he saw the hunter killer, he had to like be stoic and move really slowly because there's no cameras on that thing. The assassin who operates it goes off a sensor. So whatever gives off like a almost like a human-esque aura, that's what they shoot for because that's most likely their target. So when he was like clearing his mind of everything that made him a person, it stopped because it didn't know if it was now in front of a wall or in front of the target. That's why it
That's
went
cool, man.
searching for
That's
something else.
man. I knew I brought you to this podcast episode for a reason.
And that's why when the girl opens up, I mean, she gives off a very human aura, like I'm carrying napkins or whatever, and then it just shoots that way because that's the only target that should have been in the room for the assassin.
yeah.
Could he have just caught it, like even when he first like saw it go towards him? Could he have just like caught it, or did he need that distraction in order to catch it?
I think he would have needed the distraction because once I'm going to get it now, you're going to give a pretty quick like life or death situation, got to catch it, and then the guy could just like poke. It's instant death, by the way. That thing is instant death. It's not like the dads that paralyzed him. It
Yeah.
was one shot, you're done.
No, man, that's kind of when I wish there was a little bit more explanation because I always thought that he was almost like camouflaging himself with, at the time he was watching this movie or this video, holographic video of like the world and kind of learning more about it. So I always saw himself kind of hiding behind that holograph. So to me, it just seemed like he was hiding himself so that the pilot that was piloting the drone couldn't see him. So like now that you gave me that explanation, that does bring a little bit more of a reasoning for me to enjoy that scene next time I'm watching it because it always kind of bothered me.
Yeah, because if you see the kid, like his character's kind of cool in my opinion, right? Because he tries to be normal in the sense that he's like, I'm supposed to be royalty, but I'm supposed to also teach the people so and so. But he's very stoic overall, right? Like, because his mom has taught him how to control his body completely, the ways of the Bene Gesserit, and that's what he's able to do that he shouldn't be able to do, and that's what makes his character so cool because you have this very empty shell of a man that's trying to fill it with more Atreides beliefs, and at the same time, he's supposed to be this deity that he doesn't even know if he really is or isn't, but he's supposed to kind of lean on it sometimes when he's talking to the Fremen, but not sure if he should.
Man, dude, this Paul kid sounds like a freaking Jedi, man. Like I'm like getting wet for him as you're talking about him.
This is why I like the Dune universe a little bit better than the Star Wars universe. Because in the Star Wars universe, the Jedi are like, oh, we're the source of all good, but we won't do anything for a couple of years, and hopefully that doesn't cause a rebellion. And then you got Dune, where it's like, what is the character going to do next, right? Like that, there is really no set path for a lot of these people. And as you read the books or as you see the stories, they kind of make the decisions themselves that become the domino effect of what happens to the whole universe and how everybody reacts. Because you saw the teaser. There's a princess now they're going to introduce, and that is again going to open up a lot more doors because you have the Fremen girl, you have the mother, you have uh, the the Fremen people, and they're all going to be influencing uh, the what do you call it? Oh my God, I
Paul.
forgot his name for a second. Paul. They're going to be
Paul.
all trying to influence Paul, and you're going to see his actions to that, and that's going to build the character up. But in this first movie, we see John as like this wandering character trying to like just get out of the city alive and find what to do next.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Which
because at one point Paul mentions how his plan is because the emperor doesn't have any sons, but he has like a daughter or multiple daughters. So he's gonna marry, or he's gonna try to marry the daughter. That way the House of Atreides doesn't disappear, and it kind of solidifies the relationship between the emperor and House of Atreides, so that he doesn't feel like House of Atreides is kind of threatening him. But then that would kind of make him the emperor
Yeah.
once the actual emperor dies or whatever.
I mean, that probably would have worked if the emperor had not sent his personal bodyguards, I think, into the fight. And I
Yeah.
think the fact that he did, he kind of like showed his cards. So Tony, like, was his army really needed in order to defeat the house of at that point? Was that really
Atreides.
needed?
So
Yeah.
again, the Atreides have Duncan motherfucking Idaho, right? Like that is the swordsman that was teaching the rest of the Atreides how to fight, basically. Like you had the sword masters and you had Duncan, uh, propelling their army to be better than the Harkonnens. So in a realistic one-on-one fight, you know how they were fighting up the stairs, and then the
Yeah.
Atreides were like stabbing all the Harkonnens, and they could not gain ground. That's because they're really well trained. Harkonnens are just like vicious monsters that will like steamroll anything. But the Sardaukar are like the elite special forces. So if you want to beat an army and beat them so bad that no one will know what's going on, you throw in the Sardaukar. And you have to throw in the Sardaukar because you want no survivors at that point. Because if no one survives, who knows that the Emperor was even in this plan?
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say the Emperor would be gambling if he didn't throw the starter car in there. Because if the Harkonnen went in there and they lost, well, now the Emperor has to do something, right? Like, hey, the Harkonnens attacked us. Oh shit! I guess I gotta do something about it.
You have
Oh
to punish
darn!
the
I gotta
Harkonnens.
now punish the Harkonnens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, man.
Wow.
No, there's something about this movie, man, and I hope James Cameron saw this because this movie, everything looks so real, man. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like James Cameron clearly did Avatar, and it took him 10 years to get the movie he wanted to put out there. But like this movie, it probably was done in half the time, or if not lesser, and it looks freaking phenomenal, man. Like
Hmm.
the planes that they drive, they
Beautiful.
are like the dragons, the
The-
fire dragons,
Dragonfly. Yeah,
dragonflies.
Dragonflies. Yeah.
Dude, it looks so cool, man.
Oh.
Like I wish somebody took inspiration from that and started building one like today, because to me that just tells me that it's like, hey, why can't that technology be actually brought to life? So it's just everything about this looks great. I never thought anything looked fake. So I just feel like whatever he did, like more people need to pay attention, because now he has two movies. He has Blade Runner 2049 and this movie that he's done, and they all look freaking great. And I couldn't tell you like, oh, this kind of like distracted me because the CGI wasn't there. Like everything about it was just so amazing.
No, yeah. I think visually speaking, this is probably one of the more beautiful films where you can
Mhm.
just freeze frame so much and put it as a background on your phone or on your computer on your whatever you want to background it. You had the desert area where it had like spice just blowing up when like they first hit ground, and that looked absolutely amazing. And then you had the sandstorm when they were flying the little dragon flyers through it and it was just getting cut up. Gorgeous. So whoever was the visual like coordinator on this did a phenomenal job because I think this is probably one of the best looking movies that I've seen, and I've seen this movie uh, an insane amount of times. I mean, it's a long movie, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen it. And I actually saw this movie before you asked me to. Hey, we're gonna do Dune. It's like I just finished watching this movie again. I'm in.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean there's very few things that I know you like to watch, and I know this is one of them for sure.
Yeah. No, it's a timeless tale of again. It's the Middle Eastern Star Wars, if you will.
Oh man, you
Yeah.
said
A
it.
little bit of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
yeah.
no, but if John Atreides, here's a question for you guys: if John Atreides did not exist, all right, Paul Atreides did not exist, who would you guys have your money on at that point?
Like from people that are still alive at the end of this first part, or just
It,
in general.
yeah, who would you have your money on? No Paul Atreides, no Kwisatz Haderach. Who would you think would conquer the Dune universe?
I mean, the Baron, right? I
I
mean,
don't
it is.
know.
Well, well,
No,
again,
no, go ahead, go
if
ahead.
you're removing Paul from the equation, right? Paul is the one that, as of this point, is supposed to be the revolutionary like idol that people are gonna follow to revolt against. Well, obviously the Emperor, because he's the one that kind of set that trap and basically wants House Atreides to like be gone. But then in general, like the Baron's the only one that gains the most to like kill them as well because he wants to live in Dune. Like, I mean, he wants to rule Dune and he wants to keep making the money that he's gonna keep making. So I don't know. I don't know. I guess Baron seems the most ruthless.
I say the Emperor.
Oh man, I mean, for me, it's like whatever. What's the house Jessica's part of with the?
Oh, the
Oh, the
Benny
Bene
Gesserit.
Gesserit.
But he
To
just
me, it feels like same thing with them, man. It's like if you were scared of Paul's house becoming too powerful, like wouldn't you at a certain point want to assassinate all these witches? Like, wouldn't you just want to like cut them up and like just get rid of that religion? Because to me, they seem to be the most dangerous.
You see, we all have different houses. I would say, like, I think the Atreides still got it because they're just swordsmen are like the good guy. You know, there's it's hard to have a good guy, but I think the Atreides would bring it back and like hold ground. So it's interesting that everybody has a different house that they would go for. Now,
So
the Benny Gesserit that you said, like, killed the witches. You remember the scene where it's like, "Don't worry about the guards. Your mother's outside. No one's gonna get past her."
yeah.
They are insane fighters, like
Oh yeah. I mean, she took that.
insane.
Yeah. I mean, she took that Fremen guy at the very end, like by herself, and he even
yeah.
said like, "Oh, I underestimated you."
Yeah, so they have I would say they're more dangerous than Sardaukars, more dangerous than Duncan Idaho, but there's not enough of them. They are like the Jedi's of the
Oh,
Dune
that makes
universe.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't a 1-on-1, a 2-on-1, and 3-on-1. Like you're not going to take down a Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
Period. But
Because
yeah,
yeah,
they are. That's a crazy house, if you will.
yeah, because Javier Bardem, like in that role, man, like I hardly, like I think the first time I saw him, I couldn't recognize him just because he did not look like he normally looks to me. But yeah, like he underestimated her, and I thought that was like kind of cool at the end when he was kind of like, like, hey, we'll let you live, but come with us. And then the other guy kind of stepped up and said like, no, you don't make these kind of decisions. She defeated you, so like now I'm kind of challenging Paul, which again, that guy should have never done that because spoilers, he got his ass killed.
Yeah, and the other cool thing too that you kind of just triggered on me, like the cast is pretty diverse too. You kind of have like a little bit of everything for it with like the doctor, the people that calculate, the advisor dudes, the
Mentats.
yeah them, and then like the Fremen, they're pretty diverse too, and it's cool to see that like in a movie where like it's not a thing that's a diverse cast, but it's just a diverse cast.
That's the future. Everyone's
No,
The
equal.
future.
yeah, man. I mean, just like anybody probably wants to like jump in the plane to be in a Star Wars, it feels like for this, like everybody that's an A-lister like said like put me in that movie because clearly the first one did like a really good job at I think the reviews were positive for it. It didn't make a lot of money, but I think this time we're gonna see a lot of people support it. And I, honest to God, I hope that we can see more of this because you know what? And HBO is also doing a TV show, Tony, about the witches. Sorry, I can't pronounce their name, the house,
Really?
but I know HBO. Yeah, HBO is also moving with a show about them. So it's just we're gonna
I'm
get a
down
lot
for
of.
that.
So we're
Yeah,
gonna get a lot of
absolutely.
that. So it's just makes me really excited for like Dune to take over Star Wars because again, Star Wars has been a little bit too goofy for me lately, and Andor kind of saved it for me. But I needed to get back to these like very like you know like we're nerds and I like this whole like having for you to explain to me like 30 minutes about why this one person's important. Like I like that, like all your conversation, all your words, like to me, like I was just like, yes, like tell me more about this because it's just like I
Preach.
find this preach, keep preaching, Tony. Like
Story time with Tony.
thank you for having us on your Dune podcast because this has been a great experience for at least for me.
No, no,
No, I
no.
know it.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think I mean, not just about like Tony doing a great job with this because it definitely felt like Tony's story time. But again, just even me that I kind of like I've watched it a few times, that people around me watch it. Like hearing you talk about it again just makes me really excited. The teaser just came out like in person, like in present, like it's the trailer's gonna come out for the new one. Like I think, and I still don't know who's gonna play the brother to freaking Dave Bautista's character. Like there's so many things
Oh, the
that I,
Butler, Ashton Butler. I told you.
oh, is it? Oh yeah, this. Oh,
Yeah,
I mean
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I
Who?
didn't know that. So
The Elvis actor.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, but I mean,
interesting.
there's still so much as far as like they did such a good job with this movie that I'm really curious to see how great the next one's going to be. And like to what you said, Carlos, like yeah, perhaps it didn't make a lot of money the first time around because I think again, if you would have watched the 1984
Well, it was
movie, if
COVID
you would have
too, so keep that in mind.
yeah, but even then, I just feel like again, you have people who go out to see certain movies because they're followers and stuff like that. Dune is older.
And HBO released it on the same
Yeah,
day
D
as
and
it was.
D thing.
Yeah, day. So it was also like COVID and that happened.
Yeah, and
I
I think
watched it on HBO,
I
I
think
watched
even
and
it.
then
like
the
I watched
movies.
it.
I think even like back to back right away just because it was available like that. So I mean, it didn't hurt me any that it was streaming. It was great. But I mean, hopefully right now, plenty of people have caught it. That yes, when the new one comes out, that people will support it and go watch it. That'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, so I guess the show is called The Sisterhood. I just kind of looked it up, and it's still like kind of like it's in production, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting because
That
I
sounds
think
awesome.
HBO. I don't know if you've also noticed like they're also doing that with the Batman. They're doing like the Penguin show, so I kind of like that.
Oh,
Having these big hit movies, and you're introducing like little side stories. Just so that we get a little bit more
spin-offs.
familiar with the world. So I like that. Keep it up, Warner Brothers.
But only good ones though, because like I don't want any of these like crappy ones, as long as the executives kind of stay out of it and let the creators create.
Well, we have a screenwriters strike right now, so I don't know how that's going to affect
Oh
some of the stuff that we're
yeah,
about to get.
oh yeah, the
But
the
yeah,
the the, the writer strike.
yeah. So, like, for anybody who doesn't know, right now they're striking, and the last time this happened was in 2008. And let me tell you, a lot of shitty movies and shows and plot lines.
Reality
Transformers two,
shows.
Transformers 2. I'm looking at you like a lot of like shit. A lot of shit stuff came out because of the writer strikes. I'm hoping they're able to resolve this writer strikes like instantly because it is gonna hurt me. I know it.
Yeah, once this writer strike's over, I think we can finally get like Wild Wild West 2 or something, some gold nugget.
Don't hey, there will be no slattering of Wawa West while I'm in this chair.
Well, in that
No, that's awesome,
case,
man. The crazy part is, so like going over this whole Dune movie, like there's so much that I want to bring up, but I can't because it's in the book, and if you read the book, there's no spoiler, right? But you guys haven't read the book, and I feel so ashamed that like I
Yeah,
could just
but
give you guys my Audible account, just log it, read it, it's there, it's amazing. Just give
dude,
it a shot.
this is me with every
I'm
manga
gonna
or
say,
anime that we review. Like every time
yeah,
I'm like, oh, I know what happens in Demon Slayer. I know what happens here. So it's just like, trust
in
me, I
My
know how hard
Hero.
I know
except
how
for
hard.
Carlos, except for Carlos actually spoils it, and then he doesn't even say spoiler alert. So half the time
but
people are telling me it's like Carlos kind of gave a little spoiler there, but if they didn't catch it, they didn't catch it.
but is it a spoiler if I don't really remember? So Tony, if you don't
Uh,
remember stuff and you just want to shoot out your ass, like, oh yeah, Duncan Idaho comes back as clones, like feel free to just say
Yeah,
shit, crazy shit like that.
Clone Wars.
maybe that Tony, because I did see the 1984 movie, and I'm still like kind of somewhat familiar how everything like ends. Even though it's been a while since I've seen that movie, is there something that perhaps is a little bit of a spoiler, but that you're so anxious to tell us about? Just a little like sprinkle of
a
something that
sprinkle. Oh my
I
god.
don't
that
want
you're
to know.
excited
I don't want to
that
know.
you're excited.
There's
Well, then cover your ears for like a minute, like something that's just like somewhat exciting, or at least like in generally speaking, what are you excited to see in the next movie?
I'm hoping that they hint at Paul's true role in Dune, and oh, because I think if I say the next sentence, it's a huge spoiler because there's a twist. There's a nice twist to his destiny, and you won't see it coming because the movie and even the book builds it up all the way till the end of book one, and that's why I had to read book two. It's like what the hell's going on? Because there's something to do with his destiny about him being the Tizak Zadarak or whatever that has been pounced upon for so long, and then you realize something about that role in him and why his premonitions are not 100% correct, and it's just mind blowing when you figure it out because the whole Dune movie is going to build this character up, and then they're going to show you the
Dude,
thing about Paul.
Was it all a dream?
No, no, no.
No, man. Yeah, you're kind of probably right, like Tony, not to tell us, because like, yeah, there are things that either by you or just other things that I kind of know about that I don't want to spoil for Ro or anybody else, especially like where the sand comes from. I know you definitely
Oh, the
gave, gave,
spice.
gave me a lesson about spice, and I feel like I should
Oh yeah, yeah,
go back and finish it.
yeah, yeah. You told me where the spice came from. That's it.
But
uh,
yeah,
Beto, don't know. Don't ever figure it out. It's magic.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. I'm like, this is the funny part. I'm curious to see what this next movie does. Like, as far as like what elements they keep, what elements they do, and just how things play out. And then again, same with the visuals, just how see how everything else looks. Like, there's some new environments we haven't seen, so that's pretty exciting.
Dude, and
If I see that.
the other cool thing too is that like the cast is so stacked that you have some like amazing great actors, like Oscar nominated actors that like have barely like had any type of role. Like uh um Javier Bardem, he's like in there for maybe like 10% of the movie, or
yeah.
uh Zendaya, Zendaya, whatever.
Yeah.
She's in there like for like a little bit, and then you have like Josh Brolin for a little while, and Oscar Isaac died. He was awesome, but yeah, like you're still gonna have some more of the mom. You're still gonna have more of Skarsgård. I'm guessing. And all
Who
these
knows?
actors are just gonna be amazing.
Are we getting? And I don't care if you spoil. And I mean, this is kind of like an assumption on my part, but are we getting giant worms to be part of the battle? Like, is that their secret weapon to defeating the other house right now? It's like Paul gonna ride a giant worm into like a spaceship and like knock it down. Is that what's gonna happen?
There will be worms and there will be worm riding. Put it that way. If you guys remember the miniseries, the 2000 miniseries from Sci-Fi, you get to see the worms try to get them over to the city as fast as possible. It's the coolest thing in the world, and I hope they knock it out of the park.
but but the question is, do we get Beetlejuice worms?
They basically are Beetlejuice worms, right as the stripes. That's a sand dune worm right there.
No, dude. I mean, Tony, you've been great, man. If people want to find you, what's the PO box where they can send you mail? Because I know you're not on any of the social media.
Well, it used to be an APO, but yeah.
No, boy, no, yeah. I mean, for us, I mean, guys can tweet us. You can, do another poll to see if people want to see Tony back. Because I'm definitely not gonna do a Dune Part Two review without having you here, giving me the names of all the houses.
or 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 you can contact Tony through the Senior Podcast social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Uh, you can do a review and tag us. I think maybe on something.
Yeah, thanks. All
Ramon,
of it.
where can you be found, Ramon? And give us your full address. I'm gonna write this down.
I mean, let me give you my address right away. No, but for sure, lots of different places to find us. I mean, we try to interact with a lot of people, and then I think we're hearing some responses here and there. Again, we're always open to ideas. Really excited to hear like actual conversations about what you think, and then more in general, any arguments. Like, what do you not like? No, I'm just kidding. Don't want to hear any of that.
Oh,
But no,
and
anything you need.
and we're also going to be experimenting with doing Instagram lives
Oh,
as we tried once on a couple of days ago.
hey, I know I'm confident we can build that 37 people record next Sunday if we do it again. And for once, Tony, it felt great to listen and not talk much. So again, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, man. And I hope we get to do this with you again soon. And maybe the next time we get to educate you about something. Ooh.
Oh, bring it.
All right, guys. Well, this has been Carlos. I'll talk to you guys soon.
See you guys.
All right, guys. Take care.